Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a really chilling cold case today. Oakland County child killer.
Yeah, it's a heavy one. The name given to the person, or maybe people, behind just a horrific series of crimes back in the 70s. Suburban Michigan.
Right. Terrorized the area. And it all happened in a fairly short span, didn't it?
Just over a year, really. Early 76 to early 77. And the victims.
Yeah.
Kids, just living their lives. That part is, well, it's tough.
Absolutely. And for this deep dive, we're sticking strictly to a specific set of sources you've provided. We're going to zero in on the confirmed victims, the massive investigation that followed.
Massive is the word. And all the leads, the suspects, so many threads over the decades.
Exactly. So our mission here really is to pull out the key facts, the main insights from these sources, give you the clearest picture we can of what the records actually tell us about this really complex, unsolved mystery.
Yeah, it's about what the sources say, step by step.
And the impact back then, it was huge. You mentioned a massive investigation. It was one of the biggest in the U.S. at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And it just left this deep scar on the whole community. Still felt today, you know.
So let's set that time frame again. When did this all happen?
Okay, so the sources pinpoint it pretty clearly. February 15th, 1976. That's when the first child disappeared. And it runs through to March 16th, 1977, the fourth confirmed victim.
Just over 13 months. 4 children vanished.
4 children. And there's a pattern the sources highlight, tragically.
What was the pattern?
Well, the ages first, all between 10 and 12 years old. They disappeared near home or somewhere familiar they were heading to.
Okay, and they weren't killed immediately.
No, it seems they were held captive for a time, days, maybe longer, and then their bodies were found, always within about 19 days.
And not hidden away, they're right.
Yeah.
The sources mentioned they were left out in the open.
Exactly. Public areas, near roads, almost like they were meant to be found.
Yeah.
The causes of death, strangulation, or shooting.
And the sources also noted a particularly awful detail about the 2 boys.
Yes. Sexual abuse with a foreign object, it's mentioned for both Mark Stebbins and Timothy King.
Horrific. Did they have any description early on, witnesses?
There were some sightings, yeah, led to a general description. Young to middle-aged man, defined face, sharp nose, long dark hair. Pretty vague, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's talk about the children themselves. The confirmed victims, according to the sources. Who was first?
First was Mark Douglas Stebbins. He was 12 from Ferndale, went missing February 15th, 1976.
Unfound.
Just 4 days later, February 19th, in a parking lot in Southfield.
And the cause?
Strangled.
Yeah.
Sexually abused, like we mentioned. And the sources note evidence he was bound rope marks on his wrists and ankles, also head lacerations.
God. Okay, then there was a gap.
Yeah, several months. Then Jill Robinson, also 12 from Royal Oak. She disappeared December 22nd, 1976, apparently after an argument at home.
Found just after Christmas.
4 days later, yeah, December 26th, alongside I-75 in Troy.
And her cause of death was different.
Yeah.
Very different, shot in the face. 12-gauge shotgun. Found fully clothed. Her backpack was still with her.
But there was something else strange about Jill's case in the sources, wasn't there? Something about being cared for.
Yeah, that's one of those disturbing details. The autopsy suggested she'd been fed, cared for at least 3 days before she was killed.
Fed and cared for. Wow, that just adds such a bizarre, twisted element. What does that even mean?
It's baffling, right? It complicates any simple picture of the killer, suggests something more complex, maybe psychologically, but the sources just state the finding, no definitive interpretation.
Okay, so after Jill, the fear must have really ramped up. Who was next?
Christine Marie Mihelich, he was only 10, from Berkeley, disappeared January 2nd, 1977. Just went for a quick trip to a 7-Eleven.
And she was missing for longer.
19 days.
Yeah.
Her body was found January 21st on a rural road in Franklin Village.
Also left where she could be found.
Yes, within view of homes nearby. Sources say she was smothered, probably less than 24 hours before discovery. Fully clothed, too. And it was after Christine was found that they officially called it a serial killer, right? And formed the task force.
Exactly. The similarities were just too strong. Michigan State Police took the lead, pulled together law enforcement from, I think, 13 different communities. A huge effort.
Okay. And then, tragically, there was one more.
One more confirmed victim, Timothy John King. He was 11 from Birmingham. Vanished March 16th, 1977. Went to a local pharmacy.
And found about a week later.
Less than a week, yeah, March 22nd. In Livonia, in a shallow ditch.
death.
Suffocation. And he'd also been sexually assaulted with that foreign object, likely killed only about 6 hours before he was found.
And Timmy's case. There are those strange details again, like with Jill.
Yes. Incredibly unsettling. The sources say he was cleaned, groomed, and he'd eaten Kentucky Fried Chicken, his favorite food, shortly before he died.
Cleaned, groomed,
Yeah.
fed their favorite food
Yeah.
before being murdered. It's monstrous. What kind of person does that?
It's a question that haunts this case. The sources lay out these facts, this contradictory behavior, but offer no easy answers. It just deepens the horror, really.
And Tim King's disappearance, that led to a key witness, didn't it?
It did. A woman saw a boy with a skateboard matching Timmy's description talking to a man in the pharmacy parking lot, right around the time he went missing.
That must have felt like a huge break.
Absolutely vital. It led directly to that composite sketch of the suspect. And, crucially, she described his car, a blue AMC Gremlin.
The Blue Gremlin, that became a huge focus, right?
Oh, yeah. The sources say investigators tried to track down every single blue AMC Gremlin owner in Oakland County. Imagine that task back then.
Unbelievable. So based on that witness and others, they built a profile.
They did. White male, probably 25 to 35,
Yep.
dark complexion, shaggy hair, sideburns. That was the physical side.
And behaviorally, what did they think?
Someone whose job gave them freedom, movement during the day. Someone who could seem trustworthy to kids, knew the area well. And this is key. Someone who had the means to hold children captive for days without raising alarm.
The sheer volume of work.
Yeah.
How many tips did that task force handle?
The sources mention over 18,000 tips checked.
That's just
Staggering.
18,000. And wading through all that, they found other things too, right? Unrelated stuff.
Yeah, the sources mention uncovering that multi-state child pornography ring, North Fox Island, but they make it clear that was separate from the OCCK murders themselves.
Okay. But despite all that effort, all those tips, the task force didn't catch the killer.
No. It eventually disbanded, December 1978, according to the sources. The investigation was then handed over solely to the state police.
Right. And this is where, I guess, the case starts to get even more tangled over the years. More complex leads and theories emerge.
Yeah, you could say that. It gets really interesting and incredibly complicated. The investigation continued, but it branched out in so many directions. Lots of suspects, persons of interest, adds layers and layers of questions.
Like the Allen letter? That sounds pretty bizarre.
Oh, it's one of the strangest parts. Mentioned in the sources, yeah. An anonymous letter sent to a psychiatrist on the task force just weeks after Tim King was killed.
What does it say?
It was rambling, lots of misspellings. The writer called himself Alan, claimed he was a sadomasochist slave to the killer. Frank said they were both Vietnam vets.
Vietnam vets, okay.
Yeah, and Alan claimed Frank was traumatized by killing kids over there and was now getting revenge on, affluent citizens, blaming them for the war.
Wow. Did Allen admit involvement?
He did. Expressed fear, remorse, said he was suicidal, admitted going with Frank to look for victims. He offered photos, evidence, but wanted immunity. Asked the psych to reply via a code in a newspaper ad.
Did they try to meet him?
They actually set up a meeting based on his instructions, but Alan never showed, never heard from again. Just this weird, unresolved thread. Was it real? A hoax? Connected? Who knows?
Strange. Okay, moving to more, let's say, concrete leads that came up later. Archibald Edward Sloan. The sources mention him quite a bit.
Yeah, Sloan is significant. Known child molester. But the key thing here is the forensic evidence. Hair.
Right, the hair evidence found where?
Okay, so sources detail this. Hair matching the same unknown man was found in 2 places. In Sloan's 1966 Pontiac Bonneville,
Okay.
and on 2 of the victims, Tim King and Mark Stebbins.
The same unknown person's hair. In his car and on the victims.
Exactly. And here's the kicker. DNA testing later confirmed it was from the same guy, but that guy was not Arch Sloan.
So not Sloan's hair, but someone connected to Sloan. Someone who was in his car.
Precisely. It strongly suggests someone Sloan knew, someone who used his car, was linked directly to the victims. It's a major piece of forensic evidence.
It's Sloan himself. The sources mentioned failed polygraphs.
Reports, yeah, that he failed polygraphs about the OCCK case in 2010 and 2012. There's also a brief mention in the sources about a witness seeing someone who looked like John Wayne Gacy near where King was taken. But Gacy's DNA didn't match any evidence later.
Okay, so Sloan remains this figure tied forensically but indirectly. Who else came onto the radar? Ted Lamborghini?
Lamborghini, yeah. Retired auto worker. Sources link him to a sex ring back in the 70s. He faced a lot of charges later, in 2006. And a TV station apparently pegged him as a top suspect in 2007.
Did anything connect him directly to the OCCK case?
Well, he pleaded guilty to other sex charges eventually, but the sources note he specifically refused to take a polygraph about the Oakland County child killings, even when it might have helped him with sentencing in those other cases.
That's suspicious. Refusing a polygraph.
It raised eyebrows, definitely. And the Stebbins family actually filed a wrongful death lawsuit against him in 2007, alleging he abducted, held, and killed Mark.
But he was never charged criminally in the OCCK case.
No. Despite the suspicions, the lawsuit, the polygraph refusal, never formally linked or charged in the OCCK investigation itself, according to the material we have.
Okay, then there's Chris Bush, son of a GM executive. What's his story?
Bush adds another really complex layer. Sources say he was actually in police custody for suspected child pornography stuff shortly before Tim King disappeared in March '77.
Wow, the timing. And he later died.
Committed suicide, November 1978. And after his death, they found things in his apartment that seemed highly suspicious.
Like what?
Blood-stained ligatures, rope-like things, and this chilling hand-drawn picture that apparently looked like Mark Stebbins screaming, "Pinned to the wall."
That sounds incredibly damning. Plus, the sources note the killing seemed to stop around the time leading up to his death.
Yeah, no confirmed OCCK activity for nearly 20 months before he died, so naturally suspicion fell heavily on him.
There's a but, isn't there?
There is DNA testing, done in 2012. The sources state clearly that the testing exonerated Chris Bush.
Exonerated him. Wow. So, despite the drawing, the ligatures, the timing, DNA ruled him out.
Rules him out. And authorities at that time apparently stated they believed the actual killer was still alive then. Some of the investigation records on Bush were later released to Tim King's father, Barry King.
This case just keeps twisting. Okay, one more really complex figure mentioned in the sources. Jeff Gannon, or just Jeff.
Ah, Jeff, yes. This adds, let's say, a whole different kind of complexity. He came forward publicly, maybe around 2005, 2010, with his own very detailed theories.
What was his angle?
He talked about observations he made way back in '77 about an acquaintance. Noticed strange driving, weird conversations, visits to places for supposed satanic rituals. Said this acquaintance knew routes related to the case, maybe even details from that Allen letter.
The Allen letter again. Did Jeff have access to it?
Apparently not. Sources say he was denied information about it. He pushed investigators, wanted the DOJ involved, claimed he knew who did it.
How did authorities react?
Well, the prosecutor at the time, Jessica Cooper, wasn't buying it, according to the sources. Called his theories involving pagan holidays, lunar calendars, Wiccan stuff rambling. Said there was no new evidence.
But Jeff persisted.
Oh, yeah. Corresponded with the victim's mother, journalists, claimed he was part of his own investigation team, put in like 10,000 hours.
Did he ever name the killer or release his findings?
That's the frustrating part. Sources say he was reluctant, claimed investigators were incompetent or there was meddling. His lawyer said Jeff knew who it was, but needed authorities to confirm some specific detail from police files first.
Sounds convoluted. Did he ever go public with more?
He did an anonymous phone interview in 2012 and claimed there weren't just 4 victims, but maybe 11 to 16 total.
Whoa, 11 to 16, that's a huge claim.
Massive. And based on all this, his lawyer tried to file a $100 million lawsuit against the county, alleging they mishandled the whole thing, covered it up, demanded the prosecutor resign.
Wow, okay. This Jeff saga, it really highlights something, doesn't it? In a case this old, with so much noise, how do you even sort through claims like that? How do you know what's credible decades later?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's an immense challenge. You've got official findings, hard forensics like the hair DNA, old witness accounts, weird letters, theories connecting people to other crimes, and then these sprawling, detailed claims from people like Jeff, separating solid leads from speculation, red herrings. It's incredibly tough.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But efforts have continued, right? Even recently.
Absolutely. Police reports being released to families, often pushed for by people like Barry King, Tim King's dad. That brought out new details, led to retesting.
And family advocacy has been huge here.
Definitely. The King family's documentary, Decades of Deceit, was very critical of the investigation, claimed leads were ignored. They also set up a fund to help abused kids, really channeling their grief into action.
And circling back to that key DNA finding, just to reiterate from the sources.
Right. 2012, hair from Sloane's car, hair from Stebbins, hair from King, all match the same unknown man, whose DNA profile exists. But it's not Arch Sloane.
That feels like the most concrete piece of evidence pointing somewhere, even if we don't know who that somewhere is yet.
It is. And there were other later leads, too. Sources mention a 2013 tip about a buried blue AMC Gremlin being checked out in Grand Blanc. Echoes of that original lead.
The Gremlin again. And didn't a recent documentary mention Sloan again?
Yeah, 2019 documentary. Reported that Art Sloan did fail those polygraphs back in 2010 and 2012. Doesn't change the hair DNA facts, but adds to the picture around him.
So, stepping back from all these details, what does it all mean? What do the sources collectively tell us?
Well, first and foremost, it's that this case is still tragically unsolved. The impact on the families, the community, it's immeasurable and ongoing.
And it really shows the sheer complexity of huge investigations like this, doesn't it? All the leads, dead ends, conflicting information.
Exactly. It's a masterclass in complexity. The challenges of following every thread, how different perspectives emerge over decades. It's about persistence, but also ambiguity, the struggle for truth when narratives clash.
So why should people listening care about this case from the 70s?
Because understanding cases like this, even unsolved ones, tells us so much about the justice system, its limits, about the lasting trauma of such crimes, and about that relentless human need for answers for the victims, for their families. It makes you think, what stands out most to you after hearing all this?
For me, this deep dive, based on these sources, it really maps out the knowns. The victims, the massive initial effort, the specific leads like the Allen letter, the Gremlin, Sloan, Bush, Lamborghini, Jeff.
And the key forensic facts, especially that DNA profile from the hair, linking an unknown individual to Sloan's car and 2 victims.
Right. But the overwhelming takeaway from the sources is what remains unknown. Despite everything, the decades, the technology, the DNA profile existing, the killer's identity is still a mystery.
That's the core of it. This journey through the source material reveals so many layers, so many dead ends, so many persistent, agonizing questions.
And it leaves us with that final chilling thought. Who was that unknown man whose hair connects the victims to Arch Sloan's world? After all this time, will we ever find out?